You don't need to be a mechanic to stop getting played. Some repairs are real. Others are just routine tricks dressed up as technical wizardry, designed to empty your wallet while the real issue hides in plain sight. Most shops won't lie outright. They just won't tell you what you could have done yourself with a rag, a socket wrench, or 5 minutes of attention. Here are 15 motorcycle secrets mechanics don't want you to know. Starting with number 1, your service manual is better than you think. Most writers treat the service manual like a phone book from 1998, useless, bulky, and destined to gather dust. But if you actually open the damn thing, you'll find it's the most honest mechanic you've got. This isn't some generic how-to guide. A factory service manual is written by the engineers who built your bike. It tells you exactly what bolt needs, what torque, when to check valve clearance, and why your bike's acting like it hates you when it rains. Not probably correct. Not close enough. It's precise down to the millimeter and the foot-pound. And if you're still relying on random YouTube tutorials or forum threads written by ZXGod420, you're playing maintenance roulette. A proper service manual gives you model-specific diagrams that make electrical gremlins easier to exercise, step-by-step guides for everything from oil changes to carb replacements, and actual troubleshooting logic that isn't just hit it with a wrench. It's also your best defense against getting ripped off. When you know the interval for chain tension adjustment, you'll know when a shop's padding the bill. When you see your rotor bolts torqued like wheel lugs on a semi-truck, you'll know someone skipped the spec sheet. Sure, you'll still need a mechanic sometimes. Complex jobs, special tools, or warranty-sensitive repairs still call for pros. But for 80% of the stuff that breaks or wears out, a manual, a socket set, and a little patience are all you need. Next up, number 2, they reuse old parts. You brought your bike in for a new clutch. You paid for a new clutch. What you might have gotten instead? A cleaned-up old one yanked from someone else's junked transmission. Here's the deal. Not every shop is crooked, but margins are tight and temptation is real. OEM parts cost money. And when a mechanic sees an old gasket that still looks decent, or a brake caliper that just needs some brake cleaner and denial, that's often good enough for them. Not for you. Shady mechanics know most customers won't ask. They bank on you nodding at the quote and disappearing until pickup time. If you're not hovering or demanding packaging, they might just bolt in something pre-loved and pocket the markup for the new part they never actually bought. And you'll never know the difference until that part fails faster than it should. Even at dealerships, don't assume haloed honesty. Some of the worst offenders wear polos with brand logos. They've got quotas too, and a service department that prints profit by the hour. That said, not all used parts are bad news. In fact, reputable second-hand parts can save you a ton, especially for vintage bikes or rare models where OEM parts are extinct or outrageously priced. Many used parts are cleaned, tested, and perfectly functional. Some are in near new condition. Just don't gamble with safety-critical components like brakes or tires. Those should always be fresh. So ask to see what came off your bike. Ask for the packaging. Not to be annoying, just to remind them, this rider's watching. You probably already know this, but you can do 50% of repairs yourself. Most mechanics won't tell you this, but about half of what they do, routine maintenance, basic repairs, part swaps, you could easily do yourself with a $60 toolkit, 2 YouTube videos, and your service manual, and they know it. But they're counting on you being too intimidated to try. That ticking noise is probably a loose-fairing bolt. That vibration could be tire pressure or a slightly misaligned chain. Neither requires a wrench-wielding wizard, but if you walk into a shop wide-eyed, they'll gladly diagnose it as a $200 mystery fix. Why? Because motorcycle mechanics aren't just selling labor, they're selling fear. Fear that you'll strip a thread, fear that you'll over-torque a bolt and snap something vital, fear that you'll somehow turn your beloved machine into a flaming heap. And sure, if you go full caveman with tools, that can happen. But if you follow a service manual, check a guide, or watch one of the thousands of how-to videos online, you'll be fine. Jobs like oil changes, chain slack adjustment, brake pad swaps, air filter replacements, battery checks, spark plug changes, coolant flushes, these aren't technician-level tasks. They're basic upkeep. And every one you learn saves you money, teaches you how your bike works, and keeps you from getting taken for a ride at the shop. So next time you consider booking an appointment, ask yourself, is this a wrench job or just a confidence problem? Number 4, brake pads don't need to be replaced yet, but they'll say it anyway. One of the easiest upsells in the game, brake pads. Most riders don't know how to check them, can't tell the wear indicators apart from dust buildup, and assume anything involving brakes must be urgent. Mechanics know this. That's why "your pads are low" is code for "we're about to make $100 off 5 minutes of work." Truth is, brake pads have clear wear markers. These are small grooves that run across the surface. If those grooves are still visible, you've got life left. 2 millimeters of friction material left is the general replacement threshold. Some stock pads can last anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 kilometers, depending on your riding style, weight, and terrain. Replacing them at 60% wear is like tossing out half a loaf of bread because it might go stale next week. And here's the thing, some shops don't even measure, they just look. A little glaze on the pad? Must be done for. A bit of uneven wear? Better swap it just to be safe. But unless the pad's backing plate is nearly exposed or you're hearing metal on metal, it's probably not urgent. You can and should check pad thickness yourself. Pop off the caliper, shine a flashlight down, and measure. Anything above 2 millimeters? Keep riding. If you're unsure, take a picture and ask in a reputable motorcycle forum. You'd be surprised how many urgent replacements turn out to be totally unnecessary. Up next, most electrical issues are just a dead battery or dirty connection. When your bike won't start, lights flicker, or your dash throws random tantrums, you might think it's a blown fuse, bad stator, or some ECM-level nightmare. That's exactly what your mechanic wants you to think because electrical work sounds mysterious, expensive, and out of your league. But here's the truth. Most motorcycle electrical issues boil down to two culprits: a dead or weak battery and a corroded or loose connection. Batteries lose charge over time, especially if the bike sits idle. Even new batteries can fail if they've been left on showroom floors without proper maintenance, and most riders don't own a multimeter to check voltage, so they assume it's something deeper. Meanwhile, the mechanic jumps your battery, resets the system, and bills you for diagnostics. Then there's corrosion. Terminals get dirty, grounds come loose, connectors wear out. A single oxidized contact can cause your entire ignition system to throw a tantrum. Cleaning and reseating those connections, especially battery terminals and ground points, solves the issue more often than not. Mechanics know this. It's why one of their first steps in troubleshooting is battery load testing and a ground wire check. They just don't always tell you that's all it was. So what should you do? Invest in a multimeter, they're cheap. Learn to check battery voltage, 2.6V equals healthy, and clean your terminals with a wire brush. Apply dielectric grease to keep moisture out. 9 times out of 10, the issue ends there. Don't let them charge you $100 to fix what a toothbrush and voltmeter could have handled in 10 minutes. Speaking of dirty, fork seals aren't always busted. Sometimes they're just dirty. You see a little oil streak on your fork leg and brace for impact. A blown fork seal, your mechanic would probably say, followed by a recommendation for a full replacement and a warning about high labor costs. But the thing is, a leaking fork seal doesn't always mean it's broken. Most of the time, it's just dirty. Dirt, bugs, and road grime collect on the fork tube. As the suspension compresses, that crud gets dragged past the fork wiper and jammed into the seal. The seal lifts slightly, oil escapes, and what looks like a failed component is really just some grit causing mischief. Shops rarely bother checking this. Why would they? A fork service costs hundreds in labor. Telling you it might just need a clean doesn't cover the shop's rent. This is where the seal mate comes in handy. A $5 sliver of plastic that slides between the fork tube and the seal to scrape out debris. In about 10 minutes, you can stop the leak, clean the seal, and save yourself a teardown. It's so effective that even pro mechanics use it as their first step. Still leaking after that? Then you might have a torn seal or pitted fork leg. But 80% of leaky seals are cured with nothing but cleaning. Before you authorize a replacement, try this. Wipe the fork leg clean, ride for a bit, and see if oil reappears. Then use a seal mate. If it works, you just saved $300 in a week without your bike. Next trick is fuel additives can clean out gunked injectors without removing them. Your bike's running rough, hesitating, sputtering, poor throttle response. It feels like it's coughing through a straw. You bring it in and hear the dreaded words. Injectors are clogged. We'll need to pull and clean them manually. This sounds serious, but what they're not telling you is that fuel injector cleaning doesn't always require disassembly. In many cases, you can restore performance with nothing more than a bottle of fuel system cleaner and a full tank. Most injector issues stem from varnish, carbon deposits, or low-quality fuel. Over time, these clog the microscopic nozzles that missed fuel into your intake. But high-quality additives like Techron, Seafoam, or BG44K use powerful detergents to dissolve these deposits as you ride. No wrenching, no teardown, just pour and go. Shops don't advertise this because manual injector cleaning is high-margin labor. Removing injectors, testing spray patterns, and running them through an ultrasonic bath sounds impressive. But unless your injectors are severely clogged or leaking, it's often overkill. Not every additive is snake oil. The key is choosing one with polyethyramine, PEA, the active ingredient that actually dissolves carbon deposits. And yes, it works on both EFI and carb-equipped bikes. And for carbs, Seafoam doubles as a stabilizer and cleaner. Try this before handing over your wallet. Add the cleaner to a near-empty tank, fill with high-octane fuel, and ride normally, or better, aggressively, to let the cleaner do its job. You might be shocked how smooth things get after one tank. Number 8. Carb tuning can be done with $15 and your ear. You mention your bike's running rich or bogging at throttle, and the shop nods solemnly. Carbs need tuning. Then they hit you with a $200 quote. Reality check. Basic carb tuning isn't rocket science. You can do it yourself with a screwdriver, a $15 vacuum gauge, or even just your ears, and a little patience. Here's the thing. Most carbureted bikes come with pilot screws and idle mixture screws that control air-fuel balance at low throttle. Those can be adjusted without removing the carbs. You warm the bike up, adjust the screws slowly, and listen for the highest, smoothest idle RPM. That's it. No laptop, no dyno. If you're balancing multiple carbs, say on an inline 4, a cheap 2 or 4-port vacuum gauge helps sync the slide so all cylinders pull evenly. Or go full backyard spec, the dead cylinder method, where you ground out one plug at a time and listen for RPM drop consistency. Yes, jetting or needle tuning takes more effort, especially at higher RPMs. But most shops won't even touch that. They'll just fiddle with your idle and charge you like they rebuilt a Formula One engine. The only trick is don't mess with screws unless you've marked your baseline. If your mechanic can do it in under 10 minutes and charge you $150, you definitely can do it in 30 minutes for the price of lunch. Next up is number 9. Your turn signal isn't broken, just the relay. Your blinker's not flashing. You check the bulb, it looks fine, you hit the switch again. Nothing. So you assume it's the wiring, the housing, or worse, a new switch assembly. The mechanic agrees. Could be the whole stock, they say. We'll have to replace it. But 9 times out of 10, it's not the light, it's the signal flasher relay. Most motorcycles use an electronic or thermal flasher relay to control blink rate. When it dies or gets confused by a change in resistance from a new LED bulb, the signals stop blinking. Sometimes they stay solid. Sometimes they don't come on at all. And yet, the fix is a $10 part you can swap out in under 10 minutes, still using stock incandescent bulbs. The relay may just be worn out. Switch to LEDs without a resistor. The OEM relay thinks the load's too low and stops working. Install an LED-compatible flasher relay, and problem solved. And no, you don't need to pull half the bike apart. Most relays sit under the seat or behind a side panel, but mechanics know you don't know that. So instead of selling you a $10 relay, they upsell a diagnostic and replacement job that somehow ends up costing $100 plus. Even better, they bill you for both the relay and a new bulb you didn't need. Next on the list, you can extend the life of your chain with a toothbrush. Chains are wear items, sure, but if yours barely survives 10,000 kilometers, the problem isn't the chain, it's neglect. Mechanics know this, but replacing chains and sprockets is great business. So they won't always tell you that regular cleaning, even with a toothbrush, can double or triple its lifespan. Chains collect road grit, old lube, water, and grime. Left unchecked, all that abrasive filth eats away at your O-rings and rollers until the chain stretches, the links bind, and your sprockets get chewed to hell. But you don't need fancy tools. A soft, bristled toothbrush, or a cheap chain brush, and a bottle of kerosene or a dedicated motorcycle chain cleaner will do the job. Spin the rear wheel, scrub gently, then wipe clean and relube. Done. Takes 15 minutes, costs you next to nothing, saves you hundreds. Do it every 500 to 1,000 kilometer or after riding in rain or mud. Re-lube while the chain's warm. After a ride, not before one. So the lube penetrates deeper. And forget power washers or wire brushes unless you're trying to wreck your seals. Gentle and regular beats, aggressive and rare. Another trick is you can straighten a bent brake lever with heat and patience. You bike tips over at a standstill, but your front brake lever is bent inward like a curled finger. You ride to the shop, they frown and say, "Nah, can't bend that back, gotta replace it." Then they hit you for $60 plus for a new one plus labor. Here's what they're not telling you. Most stock brake levers are made of soft cast aluminum alloy. That means they can be straightened safely if the bend isn't extreme and there are no visible cracks. With basic tools, a heat gun, and some patience, you can bend it back at home. The trick is controlled heat. Aluminum is brittle when cold, so it'll snap if you force it, but warm it gradually with a heat gun until it's hot to the touch, around 250 degree F/120 degree C, and the metal becomes pliable enough to move without fracturing. Use a vise or clamp the lever down, then gently apply pressure with a wrench or soft-jawed pliers. Go slow. Don't overcorrect. This won't restore it to factory spec, but it will make it functional and safe. And honestly, it's no worse than the emergency levers riders keep in toolkits. Number 12. Motorcycle batteries last longer than you think. The moment your starter hesitates, the shop will say, "Time for a new battery." Doesn't matter if it's 2 years old, 3 years, or you just forgot to charge it once. They'll point at the date code, shrug, and convince you it's worn out. But here's the truth. Motorcycle batteries can last 5 to 7 years, if not more, if you take care of them. The number one killer of batteries isn't age, it's neglect. Sitting for months without a tender, deep discharges, vibration, poor ground connections, cheap aftermarket stators that overcharge. That's what kills batteries, not just time. Most riders hear 3-year rule and take it as gospel, but battery lifespan varies wildly based on use and maintenance. AGM batteries can easily push 5+ years. Lithium-ion batteries, even longer with proper charging and storage. If your bike's charging system is healthy and you're not constantly running it flat, your battery might still have plenty of life left. Moving to the clutch. A loose clutch cable can mimic a failing clutch. You twist the throttle and the engine revs like hell, but the bike barely moves. The mechanic suggests a $400 to $600 replacement job. But here's what they might not check: the clutch lever itself. If your clutch lever is loose, misadjusted, or has too little free play, it can keep tension on the cable even when your hand's off it. That means the clutch doesn't fully engage, so it slips under load. You'll feel the same symptoms as a worn clutch: laggy acceleration, mushy engagement, and revs that don't match speed. Except your clutch might be fine. Clutch systems rely on precise tension. Most manuals recommend 2 to 3 mm of free play at the lever. Too tight, the clutch plates can't bite. Too loose, you won't disengage cleanly. A cable that's stretched, dry, or routed poorly can also mimic failure. But these are 5-minute fixes, not full-on clutch jobs. Some mechanics go straight for the upsell. They don't test the lever play or inspect the cable before diagnosing the real issue. They assume you won't either. And if you don't ask questions, you're paying for parts you didn't need. Number 14. They upsell air filters you could clean and reuse. Air filter looks dirty? The mechanic whips it out, gives you a $40 to $90 replacement plus labor, and toss your old filter in the bin. But here's what they're not saying. If you're running a foam or high-flow cotton filter, like a K&N, BMC, or Uni, then it's designed to be cleaned, re-oiled, and reused, not replaced. These reusable filters can last tens of thousands of miles. All you need is the proper cleaner, oil, and a little time. But most shops don't want you cleaning them. They'd rather sell you another filter every year under the illusion that it's maintenance. Even some paper filters can be gently cleaned with low-pressure air or a soft brush to extend their life. Not forever, but long enough to skip unnecessary replacements. And let's be honest, a slightly dusty filter isn't choking your bike. In fact, over-oiled or freshly replaced filters can sometimes restrict airflow more than a well-used one. So why the upsell? Easy profit, low effort. You won't question it, and they get to pad the invoice. Here's what to do. Check what kind of filter your bike uses: foam, cotton, paper. Inspect it yourself, hold it up to the light. Can you see through? Still good. If reusable, clean it using the recommended cleaner and re-oil properly. Mark the mileage and set a reminder. Most reusable filters last 30,000 to 50,000 miles with care. Don't let them toss a perfectly serviceable filter just because it looks a little brown. This has been said, but it needs to be repeated. A corroded battery terminal can mimic a dead starter. Push the starter button. Nothing. Maybe a faint click. No crank, no lights, or a full system blackout. The shop diagnosis? Starter's dead. They quote you for a new motor, labor, maybe a solenoid. But guess what mimics a dead starter perfectly? A loose or corroded battery terminal. Modern bikes are fussy about voltage. Even a slight interruption from a vibrating battery cable can cause the entire electrical system to fail. The ECU doesn't boot, relays don't click, and the starter motor doesn't even try. Shops know this. The first thing any decent tech should do when faced with a no start is check battery terminal tightness and corrosion. But if they skip it, or pretend to, you end up paying for parts you never needed. So how about you take 5 minutes to remove the seat or side panel, check both battery cables, clean the terminals with a wire brush or fine sandpaper, tighten snug with a wrench. Not finger tight, wrench tight. Also, check for frayed wires or worn insulation, especially on older bikes or after a battery swap. The best part of all this is you don't need tools fancier than a wrench and a brain. Which of these tips have you used before or wish you knew sooner? Drop your experience in the comments, hit the like, and subscribe to the channel for more bike videos.